I remember the phone call, another family get together and fuming all day about it. I close the kitchen and sit down for an after hours drink with the MOD for the evening. You know, I say, it sucks to be in a family that is hitched on naming everyone after the same long dead great grandfather. It sucks. Someone calls your name and 6 or 7 heads turn. It's like some stupid joke. My friend looks at me for a minute, sizing me up, then lights a cigarette. You know, it's really not so bad. It could save your life. I look at him puzzled in the dim light from behind the bottles at the bar. In fact, he said, now that I'm my own uncle, I have a new life. Thank you, God. I laughed nervously at the obvious joke and played with the bottle cap on the counter. After a long draw on his cigarette, he paused quietly for a minute or so. Then, staring out and away from me, he started his tale. The silhouette of his face clouded in smoke. I used to ride BMX, you know, bicycles, extreme sports. Cali, California, oh yeah. I was pretty good too. Sponsors, magazines, free stuff, some money. That's until I had a little accident. Okay, for me a big accident on a ramp. Stupid trick. Anyway, lost that career. I was laid up for months drinking beer, smoking dope, kidding myself that I could ride again. Lucky for me, my housemate was a cameraman and I had met on the circuit and was doing all right. I didn't know it then, but that's when it started to go wrong. He had been working for some adult film operations in the valley when one day he comes home in a huff. I can tell he's mad. Sweaty and red-faced, grabs a beer and plops down on our dirty couch, almost on top of my cast. I'm sick and tired of these assholes, he said. I work all day in a stupid warehouse with no AC and get paid shit at the end of the day. He places a fist over each eye. Meanwhile, these jerks prance around like royalty, all high and mighty. Fuck. I light a joint and pass it to him. He takes a long draw, closes his eyes, leans back, and holds his breath for a minute or so before coughing out the blue-white smoke. He leans forward and hands me the joint. I could produce one of those films. I really could. I know the talent. I know the crews. Interrupting, I say, why don't you? At the time, I was being supportive, but with a strong buzz coming on, I went on a bit. Sure, I can help. I know people. What's stopping us? Oh man, he said, passing the doobie back again, shaking his head. Money, man, money. He got up to go to the John, and I started to think. It was like someone had placed a seed in my overly bored gut, and it was eating me alive. I didn't sleep that night, partly because of the ruckus he and his girlfriend were making in the next room, partly from the itching in my cast, and partly because I had an idea. The next day I was up early, way too early to call anyone. I made some coffee and went out on the still wet patio. Looking back, my original plan was stupid. Oh, sell steroids to my BMX buddies and raise cash to make a film that way. I was writing in a notebook, furiously scribbling ideas between puff on Camel and sips of the worst coffee I'd ever made. Around 11 or so, I saw my housemate through the sliding glass door. He waved as he headed out for the day. All right. I decided, time to get to work. I started to call my connections one after the other. The elation I had started with earlier turned to deflation. The eagerness of finally, after months having a purpose, turned as bitter as that sucky coffee as it dawned on me that everyone was already getting steroids from the same doctors that I would have to buy them from. It was late in the afternoon, and still calling, dejected and on automatic like a door-to-door salesman who is committed to finishing the block before he shoots himself. 3 from the last on the list, I reach a friend who, after laughing a bit, says to me, hey, wait a minute. You have a friend who shoots porn? Yeah, I say. Well, I know someone who has something to sell, and I think we can make some quick cash, but I can't talk about it on the phone. Okay? Okay, I reply. I thought that it might be some hot film equipment or something, as those type of things got ripped off routinely in LA. 1 week later, I found myself turning over $5 grand and having to unload $20 grand worth of cocaine. Do you want another drink? he asked, even though he was already filling my glass. Sure, I said. I took a sip and choked. What's this got to do with your uncle? All right, he returned to the bar stool. Selling coke was easy, especially with the movie connections and the parties, etc. Soon the movie production business became like a hobby, and moving drugs, the real game, if you know what I mean. Okay? What did I expect? Or better, what should I have expected? I mean, we got busted. Arraignment, investigation, whole caboodle, facing 35 years. Trial date set. Trial date comes, I brought in handcuffs to the courthouse. Funny rule, though, in California. So the jury is not prejudiced against you. They let you wear your own clothing to the trial, not that orange Devo jumpsuit they move you around in. I felt odd in the $3,000 suit I had been talking to buying when I was in the cash and carry trade. They led me to a room along with my lawyer. His face was grim, and that didn't make me feel altogether well. I was told to sit in a solid wood chair in the room, and that they would come for me when it was time. Time, that kind of time, goes slow, then fast and slow again. Tall, the while, feeling sick like on a boat. I looked at the clock, then at the door, then I noticed something strange. The door was open just a crack, just a sliver. Hunched over, I moved to take a closer look. Feeling the soft breath of air coming through the sliver, I thought they had come for me. I stood up straight and waited. No one came, so I pulled the door open a bit. The smell of the hall, heavy with the scent of papers and ink, hit me immediately. Oh, come now, I thought. They're going to entrap me with an attempted escape. I stuck my head out the door. The hallway with its high-vaulted ceilings empty. Putting one foot out, I took a half step into the corridor. I couldn't help but laugh at him then. Corridor, since when are you so fancy you use a word like corridor? Shut up, he barked. All right, hall. I put one foot out into the hall. Then the other foot, the door closed behind me. I turned to the handle and tried it. It was locked. Great, I'm thinking now the officers are going to jump me, beat me up, and charge me. A little bit of anger helped my nerves, and I took another step toward the light coming from a row of glass doors. One step, then another. Come on, come get me. I'm here. Joke's over. Closer and closer to the door now. There were people in the hall, none of which seemed to regard me in the slightest. Why would they? I guess. I'm just another guy in a $3,000 suit. I touched the brass rail on the door and pushed the sunlight. Burned bright in my eyes and on my face as I continued down the stairs. All I wanted then was to keep walking and walking and walking. Still dazed, I find myself behind a line of people. I'll move around, but now there are people behind me pushing forward. I look up and realize that somehow I got into a line at a bus stop. I'm climbing the steps, and then I'm aware of the fact that I have no money. Fumbling in my pockets, I try to turn to get off, but there are a crowd of people shoving to get on. The bus driver scowls and yells, "Just get on, asshole." Not bothering to look back, I get a seat in the middle of the bus. I got off in front of a diner where I knew one of the waitresses, and I went in and asked to use the phone. I called my house to see if the cops were there already, but who should answer but my housemate Sam. "Hey, I thought they would have nabbed you too, okay? I understand when they caught me at the shoot, Julie called you, and I know that's a good thing. You were able to get rid of the stuff and clean the house. That's great. Don't be sorry. Hey, you have to do me a favor. I'm at Klein's. Could you pick up a bag? No, just a gym bag. Get my keys and extra wallet out of my drawer. And can you lend me $1,000? Oh man, you're a pal. I'll pay you back. See you in a few." Sam brought by the things I asked for, a pair of sneakers as well. I changed in the bathroom and we said our goodbyes. I wonder how he's doing. I yawned. Nice story, but why aren't you in prison? I asked. I'm getting to that, he said. 5 days later, cramped and smelling of bus, I arrived at my parents' house. I must have been exhausted. If you're going to find an escaped felon, you go to their parents' house. What was I thinking? I hadn't talked to them for a while, with the trouble and all, so I rang the doorbell and waited. Rang again and waited. Our neighbor who was watering out front shouted at me, "They're not home, Jonah." "What?" I shouted back. Vacation, was her reply. Vacation? She was shaking her head yes. Okay, bye. I let myself in with my key. I tried to call my dad's cell phone, but wherever they were, they had no service. So I hid out, keeping the lights low at night, not going out. Then one day the phone rang. I was on the couch and reflexively picked it up. Oh, crap. Mistake, I thought. What now? I put the phone to my ear. Hello? Sorry to disturb you, sir, but do you know a Jonah Williams? My heart sunk. I said yes, trying to do my best. Father voice. He's my son. Well, sir, this is Duval County Police, and wait for it. I'm going to jail, my inside screaming. We're sorry to inform you that he is dead. We need you to come to the hospital to fill out some papers. Is that all right with you? When I arrived, still shocked at hearing that, I was dead. Tonight, sir, if you can. Tonight. Yes, tonight. I called a taxi and went to the hospital morgue, half expecting a Twilight Zone moment where I would see my own face on the gurney. They barely looked at the expired license and allowed me in. The doctor pulled back the sheet and I held my breath. He was only 5 years older than me and had more than a passing resemblance. We were both named for the same man, a Jonah Patrick Williams, his grandfather, my great-grandfather. The doctor pulled the sheet back over his head and led me out. He handed me a clipboard with some papers attached. I need you to fill these out, please, a clinical tinge in his voice. I stared blankly at the papers, a lot of questions about the deceased I didn't know. Social security number, driver's ID, date of birth. I thought, who cares anyway, and I put in my social security number and my date of birth. It was my damn name on the thing anyway. Hey, I felt an idea coming on. Great, I thought, just great. See what your great ideas have got you so far? Then I thought, what have I got to lose? I filled in my driver's ID, my address, my next of kin. After about half an hour, I turned the paperwork over to the nurse at the desk. How many death certificates will you need? You'll need one for the funeral home and one for each insurance claim and, of course, the credit card companies. Not knowing what to ask for, I asked for 5 and paid the fee. They'll be ready in a few days, she said. I took charge of my uncle's household, canceled the cable and the phone, explained that I was moving. I remember well, it was Tuesday when I did get the call I was waiting for. It was the prosecutor's office from Los Angeles County. I lied. I said, yes, I knew Jonah Williams. He was my nephew, but he's dead now. I'm sorry to hear that, said the official, but could you provide us with some proof? Death certificate, police report, etc. Sure, I said, nervous and yet somehow gleeful. Where do I send them? My parents finally returned the next week, unaware that I had been in any trouble. Only glad that I had manned up and taken care of the tragedy. My uncle didn't have much in the way of savings. He never married and rented his apartment. I'll never complain about that name thing again. Because after his cremation, I became my own uncle. One last drink to Jonah Williams. Let's get out of here.